ever notice how the very thing that makes you good sometimes makes you weak in the eyes of the world? You open your heart, you show your kindness, you give your time, your energy, your love, and yet instead of gratitude, you get disappointment. Instead of loyalty, you get betrayal. And deep inside you wonder, why? Because nobody told you this truth. Life doesn't always reward kindness. People don't always honor the hand that feeds them. Sometimes they bite it. You keep showing up for people thinking it will earn their respect, but it only teaches them to take you for granted. And every time you let them slide, every time you say it's okay when it's not okay, you're teaching them how to treat you. This isn't about becoming cold. This isn't about losing your heart. This is about protecting it, about understanding that kindness without boundaries is an invitation for disrespect. And until you understand that, you will keep pouring yourself into people who see you as useful, not valuable. Today, we're going to talk about why your kindness is costing you respect and how to change that. Number one, you teach people you'll always say yes. There's a dangerous pattern that forms when yes becomes your default answer. At first, it feels noble. It feels right. You become the person everyone can count on, the dependable one, the steady one, the one who always shows up when called. There's a kind of pride in that. You feel like you're making a difference, that you're proving your loyalty, that you're being the good friend, partner, or colleague. But the problem is when you always say yes, people start to hear it differently. At the beginning, it's gratitude. Thank you so much. You didn't have to. But over time, it shifts to expectation. Of course you'll do it. You always do. And once that shift happens, your yes is no longer a gift. It's no longer appreciated the way it once was. It's assumed. It's taken for granted. And when something is taken for granted, respect begins to fade. Quietly, slowly, without you even realizing it, until one day you look around and realize you're not being valued for your effort anymore. You're just being used for it. The heartbreaking thing is you don't see it coming. You think you're being kind, being helpful, being a team player. You convince yourself that this is just who you are, someone who shows up no matter the cost. And because you believe that's a strength, you overlook the warning signs. You overlook the times you're exhausted but agree anyway. You overlook the guilt that creeps in when you want to say no, but you tell yourself that a good person doesn't turn people away. But here's the truth. A good person can burn out. A good person can become bitter. A good person can become a shell of themselves if they spend all their time pouring into others without ever getting filled back up. And the saddest part, when you keep saying yes, no matter how drained you are, the people around you stop seeing the cost you're paying. They only see the result. They see you show up. They see the task done. They don't see the late nights, the stress, the way you're neglecting yourself to keep their world comfortable. People are incredibly sensitive to patterns. They might not always notice the small details, but they notice consistency. If you're the kind of person who says yes every single time, they stop asking themselves, will they help, and start thinking, when will they help? Your willingness becomes predictable, and once something becomes predictable, it loses its power. The moment your help stops being special is the moment it stops being respected. When someone knows without a shadow of a doubt that you will always agree, they stop factoring your needs into the equation. They don't pause to wonder if you're busy, tired, or struggling. Why would they? In their mind, you've already decided for them. And here's the brutal reality. The easier you make it for people to depend on you without question, the easier it becomes for them to overlook the weight of what you're carrying. And you might think that's on them, but it's also on you, because you've trained them to think that way. It's human nature to appreciate what we can't always have. Scarcity creates value. Think about how much more we treasure something when it's rare. How much more we savor a conversation with a busy friend who makes time for us. How much more we respect a mentor who chooses to share their advice sparingly. When your yes is rare, it's precious. But when it's constant, it becomes like background noise. There, but unnoticed. That's the trap of always agreeing. You believe you're building goodwill, but what you're actually building is familiarity. And familiarity without boundaries breeds entitlement. That's when people start acting like they deserve your time, your energy, your resources, simply because they've grown used to getting them. And once they believe they deserve it, respect starts dying in silence. Every yes you give has a cost. Sometimes that cost is obvious. Your time, your money, your effort. Sometimes it's more subtle. Your mental peace, your focus, your ability to pursue your own dreams. But it's always there. And every time you give a yes that you don't truly mean, you're robbing yourself of something. It might be an evening you could have spent resting, a weekend you could have used to recharge, or the mental clarity you needed for your own priority. That resentment you feel, that little sting when you're halfway through doing something you didn't want to do, that's your soul telling you you've given away something important. And when that feeling repeats often enough, it doesn't just make you tired. It makes you start losing respect for yourself. And when you lose respect for yourself, others follow. And here's the truth that stings the most. The people you keep saying yes to might not even be trying to take advantage of you. They're just responding to the rules you've set. You've told them, not in words, but in actions, that you are always available, always willing, always ready to step in. And so they believe it. They believe you can handle it all because you've never shown them a reason to think otherwise. They may not even realize they're crossing your boundaries because you've never made those boundaries clear. That's why the responsibility to change this pattern starts with you. Look at the people you truly admire, the ones whose help feels like a blessing. They don't give it away lightly. They protect their time, their energy, their focus. When they say yes, it carries weight because you know they've chosen it. It wasn't automatic. You feel honored to receive it and you never take it for granted. That's what your yes should feel like. It should feel like a moment of generosity, not an expectation. But to get there, you have to start protecting it. You have to start saying no when you mean it. You have to start showing people that your time is valuable, that your energy is limited, and that your kindness is not a free-for-all buffet for anyone who asks. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you wise. It makes you intentional. It forces people to see you as a human being, not a machine that endlessly produces help and support. And ironically, it often makes them appreciate your yes even more, because when it comes less often, they value it more deeply. They understand it's a choice, not an obligation. And in that moment, respect begins to grow again. It grows from knowing that your time and effort are worth something to you first and then to them. If you keep saying yes to everything and everyone, you will wake up one day and realize your life is full of commitments you didn't even want. Your schedule will be a reflection of other people's priorities, not your own. Your energy will be drained by problems that were never yours to solve. And when that happens, the people around you won't suddenly wake up and say, we should give them a break. They'll simply find someone else who will say yes. That's the cold truth. Respect is built when you set the standard for how people treat you, and it's destroyed when you refuse to protect it. Your kindness is a gift, but if you want it to be respected, it has to have limits. Number 2, you don't enforce boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are lines to protect what matters most inside you. They are the silent rules that tell the world, this is how far you can come. This is how I expect to be treated. This is what I will not allow. The problem is, many kind people set those rules in their minds, but never enforce them with their actions. You might think you have boundaries, but if they exist only in your head, they're invisible to everyone else. And here's the hard truth. Invisible boundaries don't protect you. They don't demand respect. They only give you the illusion that you're safe, when in reality, people are crossing lines you never dared to mark out loud. And every time you let that happen, you're teaching people that your comfort, your peace, your values, all of it is negotiable. The world has a way of testing limits, not always out of malice, sometimes just out of curiosity or habit. People push to see how much they can get away with, and if you don't push back, they learn that the limit doesn't really exist. Maybe you tell yourself, it's not a big deal this time, or I don't want to cause conflict. But boundaries don't collapse all at once. They erode slowly, one exception at a time. And before you know it, you're saying yes to things that drain you, tolerating behavior that hurts you, accepting treatment you swore you'd never allow, not because you wanted to, but because you never enforced the limits you thought you had. The truth is, the moment you let someone cross your line without consequence, the line is gone in their mind. And once it's gone, respect doesn't just fade, it evaporates. Enforcing boundaries takes courage because it means risking people's reactions. It means being willing to disappoint, to make someone uncomfortable, to be misunderstood. And for kind-hearted people, that can feel unbearable. You've built your identity around being agreeable, being liked, being easy to work with. You've convinced yourself that saying no or calling someone out will make them think you're cold or ungrateful. But here's the thing, boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are honesty. They're the most loving thing you can offer because they tell people the truth about what you can and cannot give. Without that truth, relationships are built on assumptions, and assumptions almost always lead to disappointment. The people who truly care about you will respect the limits you set. The ones who don't respect them were never invested in you to begin with, only in what you could give them. Think about the last time someone crossed a line with you. Maybe they spoke to you in a way that made you feel small. Maybe they kept asking for favors without ever returning them. Maybe they made plans for you without asking, assuming you'd go along. Did you speak up? Or did you swallow the discomfort and hope it wouldn't happen again? If you chose silence, understand this. Silence is not neutrality. Silence is permission. Silence tells the other person, this is okay. And the next time, it becomes easier for them to repeat the behavior. They may not even realize they're disrespecting you, not because they're cruel, but because you've trained them to think it's acceptable. That's why enforcing boundaries isn't optional if you want respect. It's essential. When you enforce a boundary, you're not just telling the other person what they can't do. You're telling yourself what you're worth. You're reminding yourself that your peace of mind is not a luxury, it's a necessity. You're reinforcing the truth that your time and energy have value. And every time you uphold that truth, even when it's uncomfortable, you strengthen your own self-respect. And here's a secret. People notice. They notice when you're not easy to manipulate. They notice when you carry yourself like someone who deserves consideration. And that noticing often turns into respect, even from the ones who didn't like your boundary at first. It's important to understand that setting a boundary without consequences is like putting up a fence with no lock. It might look strong, but anyone can walk right through it. If you tell someone, I can't help you when I'm at work, and then you keep answering their calls during office hours, you've sent two messages, and the second one cancels out the first. That's why enforcement matters more than the declaration itself. You don't need to yell, you don't need to fight, but you do need to be consistent. Boundaries are upheld through action, not words alone. People respect what you enforce. They ignore what you don't. These approval acts are mere measurement. They objectively enforce. There's also a myth that boundaries push people away. The truth is the right boundaries pull the right people closer, because when someone knows where they stand with you, there's no confusion, no walking on eggshells, no guessing game about your limits. Healthy people appreciate that clarity. They see your boundaries not as rejection, but as an invitation to engage with you in a way that's respectful and sustainable. The ones who resent your limits are often the ones who benefited most from you having none. That resentment is not a sign you're wrong. It's proof you're finally doing something right. If you want people to respect your kindness, your generosity, your heart, you have to pair them with firmness. Softness without firmness is weakness. Firmness without softness is harshness. But together, they're power. The moment you stop apologizing for having needs, the moment you stop allowing people to walk past the line you've drawn, you change the way the world treats you, and you change the way you see yourself. Because every time you enforce a boundary, you're telling yourself, I am worth protecting. And that is where respect begins. Number 3, you apologize for things that aren't your fault. There's a certain kind of person who carries the weight of the world on their shoulders, not because they caused the problems, but because they feel responsible for fixing them. That person often develops a reflex. The word sorry slips out before they even realize it. The meeting started late, sorry. Someone else made a mistake at work, sorry. A friend is upset about something entirely unrelated to you, sorry. At first it seems like a harmless habit, a sign of humility and politeness. But over time, that constant apologizing does something dangerous. It tells the world you believe you are at fault for things you have no control over. And when you keep doing that, people start to believe it too. They start to associate you with blame, even when you've done nothing wrong. And in that subtle shift, respect begins to slip through your fingers. When you apologize for things that aren't your fault, you're sending an unspoken message. I am willing to take responsibility for the mistakes and emotions of others. For someone with a manipulative streak, that's an invitation to offload their guilt onto you. They see that you'll absorb the discomfort, carry the shame, and smooth things over without a fight. That means they never have to face their own actions because you've stepped in and taken the hit for them. Even for people who aren't trying to take advantage, the pattern still erodes respect. They stop seeing you as someone who stands firm in their truth and start seeing you as someone who bends under the slightest pressure. And no one respects a foundation they think will crumble when tested. The truth is, every unnecessary sorry chips away at your authority. Imagine a leader who apologized for the weather being bad, for the printer jamming, for the coffee running out in the break room. You'd start to question whether they really had control over anything at all. You'd wonder if they were more concerned with pleasing people than solving problems. That's what you do to yourself when you claim responsibility for things beyond your influence. You paint yourself as powerless, and powerless people rarely command respect. Worse, you start to believe your own story. You begin to feel guilty for simply existing in situations where things go wrong, as if your mere presence somehow caused the problem. That's a heavy and unfair burden to carry. I know why people do it. They think an apology will smooth things over, make everyone feel better, keep the peace. And yes, sometimes it does, temporarily. But it also creates an unbalanced dynamic. You take on the emotional labor, they get to avoid accountability. You think you're solving the problem, but really you're just absorbing it. And here's the quiet tragedy. The more you do this, the more people expect you to do it. Soon, sorry becomes your signature, your calling card, your default introduction to every conversation. It becomes so normal that when you actually do need to stand your ground, people are shocked. Or worse, they ignore you. Apologizing for things that aren't your fault also dilutes the meaning of a real apology. When sorry is overused, it stops carrying weight. A genuine apology should mean I recognize my mistake, I take ownership, and I will make it right. But when you apologize for rain falling, for someone else's bad mood, for circumstances you didn't create, you blur the line between guilt and empathy. And once that line is blurred, people stop knowing when you actually take responsibility for your own actions. They just hear noise. Polite, empty noise instead of accountability. And without accountability, respect dies on both sides. There's a huge difference between empathy and apology. Empathy says, I understand you're hurting. Apology says, I caused your hurt. When you blur those, you start claiming blame for pain you didn't cause. And here's the kicker. You can empathize without apologizing. You can say, I see how difficult this must be for you, or I wish this had gone differently for you, without accepting fault. The more you learn to separate those two things, the more you'll protect your self-respect and the respect others give you. If you want people to respect you, you have to stop apologizing for existing in imperfect circumstances. You have to stop jumping in to take the hit when it's not your hit to take. Because every time you do, you reinforce the idea that your role is to absorb everyone else's mistakes. And respect doesn't grow in that role. It withers. Respect grows when people see that you know where your responsibility begins and ends. And that you stand tall in your truth, own what's yours, and refuse to wear someone else's guilt like it's your own. That doesn't mean you should never apologize. It means your apologies should be meaningful. They should reflect moments when you truly took part in creating the problem. That's when sorry has weight, when it heals, when it earns respect instead of eroding it. And when you reserve your apologies for those moments, people will know you mean it. They'll know you're someone who takes real responsibility, not someone who hands it out like free samples. And that's a person people listen to. That's a person people respect. In the end, the habit of apologizing for things that aren't your fault is not kindness, it's self-erasure. It's removing yourself from your own worth to make space for someone else's comfort. But the truth is, you don't have to shrink to be kind. You don't have to carry guilt to show empathy. You don't have to say sorry to be good. And the day you stop apologizing for what's not yours to own, you'll notice something shift. People will hear you differently. They'll treat you differently. And most importantly, you'll start treating yourself differently. And that's the kind of change that sticks. Number 4, you give more than you receive consistently. There is a beautiful strength in giving. It's one of the purest forms of love, to offer your time, your effort, your resources, your energy without demanding anything in return. Giving can make the world brighter, relationships stronger, and hearts warmer. But here's where it turns dangerous. When giving becomes a one-way street, when you're pouring into everyone else and no one is pouring back into you, something starts to break. Slowly, quietly. At first you don't notice because you're fueled by the joy of helping, by the satisfaction of being needed, but over time, the imbalance begins to weigh on you. You start feeling drained in ways you can't explain. You start wondering why you feel invisible in rooms you've lit up with your effort. And the truth is, when you give more than you receive, consistently, you're setting the stage for people to stop respecting your contribution altogether. Humans adapt quickly to what's constant. If someone gets used to you showing up for them every time, they stop noticing the sacrifice behind it. They see the result, the help, the favor, the support, but not the cost, the hours you gave up, the sleep you lost, the personal plans you set aside. Those things fade from their view because they only see what you delivered, not what it took from you. And the more they get without giving, the more they expect it. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's just human nature. But regardless of intention, the outcome is the same. Your giving stops being a gift and starts being an unspoken obligation. The painful irony is that the more you give without receiving, the less people value what you're giving. Because in their eyes, if it was truly costly to you, you wouldn't be able to give so much so often. They assume your well is endless. They assume you can keep pouring forever without needing to be filled. And in that assumption, they stop asking if you're okay. They stop checking in on you. They stop offering the smallest gestures of care in return. Not because they're heartless, but because you've built a pattern that tells them, I don't need anything. I'm fine. I'm always fine. That's the silent message you send when you never allow yourself to receive. The truth is, every human being needs replenishment. You can't survive, much less thrive, on output alone. Giving without receiving doesn't make you noble. It makes you empty over time. You might not feel it immediately, but it creeps in. Emotional fatigue, resentment, burnout. And resentment is the poison that can quietly destroy your kindness from the inside out. You start giving not because you want to, but because you feel you have to. Your joy in helping turns into a heavy obligation. And when that happens, you're no longer truly giving. You're just bleeding out your energy until there's nothing left. Relationships, whether personal or professional, are healthiest when there's reciprocity. That doesn't mean keeping score. It doesn't mean demanding equal payback for every gesture. It means there's a rhythm, a flow, where giving and receiving are both allowed, where you can show up for someone and know they'll show up for you when it matters. But when you give without ever allowing anyone to give to you, you break that rhythm. You remove the other person's opportunity to reciprocate, and in doing so, you make the relationship lopsided. Lopsided relationships do not breed respect. They breed dependency on one side and depletion on the other. Sometimes the hardest part of this truth is admitting that you've been part of creating the imbalance. It's easy to see yourself as the victim. They never give back to me. But the reality is, if you never express your needs, if you never allow others to help you, if you always wave away their offers and insist you're fine, you're contributing to the cycle. You've made it too easy for them to assume you're self-sufficient. And when people think you never need them, they stop feeling responsible for you. Respect thrives when there's mutual investment. Without it, your role becomes more like a service provider than a partner, a friend, or an equal. It's important to understand that receiving is not weakness. It's not taking advantage. It's not being selfish. It's balance. And balance is the foundation of healthy respect. When someone gives to you, it strengthens the bond between you. It creates a shared investment in the relationship. It tells the other person that you trust them enough to let them support you. And trust is a form of respect. But when you never receive, you deprive them of that chance. You may think you're protecting them from burden, but you're actually keeping them at a distance and, ironically, lowering their respect for what you do give. If you want people to value your giving, you have to let them feel the difference between your presence and your absence. You have to let them see that your contribution has weight and that it requires something in return, not in a transactional sense, but in a human sense. That return can be care, appreciation, time, or effort. But there has to be something, or else your giving will become the air they breathe, unnoticed, unappreciated, and assumed. And nothing loses respect faster than something taken for granted. The day you start receiving without guilt, the day you allow others to pour back into you, something powerful happens. You don't stop giving. You just start giving from a place of abundance instead of depletion. You protect your energy, and in doing so, you protect your kindness. People feel that shift. They see that your generosity has limits, that it's valuable, that it's a choice. And choice commands respect. Because respect doesn't come from endless giving. It comes from giving wisely, intentionally, and with the self-worth to know when it's your turn to be poured into. Number 5, you avoid confrontation at all costs. There are people who will do almost anything to keep the peace. They'll bite their tongue, swallow their frustration, and smile through situations that make their blood boil, all to avoid the discomfort of conflict. On the surface, it seems like a noble quality. After all, the world already has enough shouting matches, enough bitterness, enough unnecessary arguments. But here's the hidden danger. When you avoid confrontation at all costs, you're not keeping peace, you're keeping silence. And silence in the wrong moments is not the absence of conflict. It's the absence of respect. Because when people see you refuse to stand up for yourself, they learn that your boundaries, your opinions, your needs are negotiable, or worse, irrelevant. Avoiding confrontation might keep you from feeling awkward in the moment, but it comes at a price. Every time you let something slide that shouldn't slide, you send a message. It's okay to treat me this way. I won't push back. And once that message is received, it's rarely forgotten. People test limits, not always on purpose, sometimes just to see how far they can go. And if they see that you won't call them out, won't correct them, won't speak up, even when you're hurt or disrespected, they'll assume it's safe to keep doing it. That's not because everyone is cruel, but because human nature takes the path of least resistance. And if you're always that path, respect starts walking away from you. The hardest part about confrontation is that it's uncomfortable. It can shake your voice, make your hands sweat, make your heart race. You fear being misunderstood. You fear hurting someone's feelings. You fear the relationship breaking. So you choose the safer route, silence. But silence isn't safer, it's slower. It's a slow leak of your self-worth. It's a quiet erosion of your confidence. And over time, it's a habit that convinces others that their comfort matters more than your dignity. That's how avoiding a 5-minute uncomfortable conversation can lead to 5 years of being undervalued. Confrontation doesn't have to be a screaming match or an explosion of anger. It can be calm. It can be direct. It can be a simple, steady statement. I didn't appreciate what you said, or that's not acceptable to me. Those words might feel small, but they carry weight. They tell people that you are paying attention, that you value yourself enough to address wrongs when they happen. And here's the truth. Confrontation, when done right, isn't about starting a fight. It's about protecting the relationship from decay. Because when you let resentment pile up silently, it will eventually come out. And when it does, it's far uglier than a respectful confrontation in the moment. Avoiding confrontation also sends the message that your truth isn't worth hearing. Think about that for a second. If you never speak up, how will anyone know what you stand for? How will they know where the lines are? How will they know they've hurt you if you never say it? And if they never have to consider your feelings, how can they truly respect you? Respect grows from mutual awareness, from an understanding of each other's boundaries. Without confrontation, there's no awareness. Without awareness, there's no respect. And yes, there will be people who don't like it when you start confronting them, especially if they've gotten used to your silence. They might push back, get defensive, or even accuse you of changing. But that's not a sign that you're wrong. It's a sign that you're resetting the terms of how you will be treated. People who genuinely value you will adjust. People who only valued your compliance will fade. Either way, confrontation works like a filter. It reveals who is truly in your corner. When you avoid confrontation, you protect the other person's comfort at the cost of your own. But when you confront with respect and clarity, you protect yourself, and sometimes you protect them too. You give them the chance to understand you better, to see where they've crossed a line, to grow from the interaction. That's the power of healthy conflict. It can strengthen the bond instead of breaking it, but only if you're willing to step into that discomfort and speak. If you want respect, you have to show people that you're not afraid to address what matters, that you won't ignore disrespect even when it's subtle, that you value your own dignity enough to risk an awkward moment for the sake of clarity. Because here's the thing, respect isn't built in moments of agreement. It's built in moments where disagreement is handled with honesty and strength. And when you stop avoiding confrontation, you stop letting people guess your worth, you start showing it to them. The day you decide that your peace of mind is worth more than someone's temporary comfort, you'll feel the shift. Your voice will stop shaking as much. Your self-respect will grow. And slowly people will learn, not because you told them, but because you showed them that you are someone who demands and deserves to be treated with respect. And that lesson, it sticks. Number 6, you confuse kindness with approval seeking. Kindness is one of the most beautiful human qualities. It's the ability to see someone's need and meet it, to offer a helping hand without keeping score, to bring light into a world that can feel so cold. But there's a fine line between genuine kindness and something far more dangerous. Kindness that is rooted in a need for approval. On the outside, they look the same. You're smiling, you're helping, you're saying yes, but on the inside, the motivation is different. Genuine kindness comes from strength. Approval seeking comes from fear, fear of being disliked, fear of being left out, fear of being judged. And when your kindness is driven by that fear, it stops being a gift and starts being a transaction. You're not giving freely, you're buying acceptance. And the problem is, people can sense it. They might not say it out loud, but deep down they know the difference. When you confuse kindness with approval seeking, you give up your power without even realizing it. You start measuring your worth by other people's reactions. If they smile, you feel valued. If they don't, you feel rejected. And that means your self-worth is no longer in your hands. It's in theirs. That's a dangerous place to live, because now you're trapped in a cycle. The moment someone pulls back their approval, you scramble to win it back. You do more, give more, sacrifice more. You overextend yourself, not because you want to, but because you're afraid of losing your place in their life. And the cruel twist, the more you chase someone's approval, the less they respect you. Approval might bring you temporary warmth, but it never earns you lasting respect. People respect those who stand in their truth, not those who bend to please everyone. And when you're operating from approval seeking, you're constantly bending. You avoid saying things that might upset someone, even if they're true. You agree to things you don't want to do. You laugh at jokes that make you uncomfortable. You change your opinions depending on who you're with. You lose little pieces of yourself to keep others comfortable. At first, people might appreciate the ease of being around you. You're agreeable, accommodating, low minced temper. But over time, that ease turns into invisibility. If you never show your edges, your boundaries, your true thoughts, you disappear into the background, and no one can respect what they can't truly see. The tragedy of approval seeking disguised as kindness is that it can feel so selfless when it's actually deeply self-neglecting, where you think you're being generous, but you're neglecting the most important relationship you have, the one with yourself. You're giving kindness away like currency, hoping to buy love and validation, when in reality, love that has to be purchased is never real. It's conditional. It vanishes the moment you stop paying the price. And here's the truth no one tells you. The people whose approval you're working the hardest to earn are often the ones who will drop you the fastest. Because what they value isn't you. It's the way you make them feel. And the second you stop catering to that, they move on. Real kindness isn't afraid of rejection. Real kindness doesn't need a thank you. Real kindness doesn't collapse if someone disapproves. When you're truly kind, you're giving from a place of abundance, not from a place of needing to be filled. That's why people respect it, because it's authentic, not transactional. And the irony is, the moment you stop needing approval, you often gain more of it. People admire those who can stand firm in themselves, who can say no without guilt, who can walk away from relationships that demand constant self-sacrifice. They see that as strength, and strength commands respect in a way approval chasing never will. To break the cycle, you have to get brutally honest with yourself. Ask, am I doing this because it's the right thing to do, or because I'm afraid of how they'll see me if I don't? If the answer is fear, it's not kindness. It's approval seeking. And if it's approval seeking, you're building connections on shaky ground. You can't keep living like your worth is on loan from other people. Because here's the truth. The moment you base your value on someone else's validation, you've handed them the keys to your self-respect. And no one should have that much control over you. This doesn't mean you stop being kind. It means you start being kind from the right place. A place where you're not trying to earn your existence, but simply expressing who you are. It means your kindness is a choice, not a performance. It means you can say yes when you want to and no when you need to without feeling like your entire identity is at risk. That's when kindness becomes powerful again. When it's not a cry for approval, but a declaration of who you are, no matter who's watching. Learn from them and define their. The day you stop confusing kindness with approval seeking, everything changes. You stop over-explaining your decisions. You stop chasing people who don't value you. You stop molding yourself to fit into places you were never meant to belong. Instead, you start attracting people who respect your boundaries, your truth, your strength, people who value you, not because you please them, but because you're real. And that kind of respect, it doesn't fade, it grows. You see, there's a cost to kindness that no one warns you about. People tell you to be good, to give, to serve, to forgive. And yes, the world needs that. But what they don't tell you is that kindness without limits is a seed planted in poor soil. It will grow, but it will grow wild. And instead of a garden, you'll end up with weeds. Weeds that choke the life out of your joy, your dignity, your self-respect. I want you to understand something deep. The problem is not your kindness. It's never been your kindness. The problem is what happens when kindness becomes a habit without thought, a reflex without boundaries, a way of living that bends so far it finally breaks you. Because if you're not careful, the very thing that makes you beautiful will be the thing that people use to keep you small. You've seen it in your own life, times when you've said yes before you even asked yourself if you wanted to. Times when you've swallowed your voice because speaking your truth might cause a ripple. Times when you've taken blame that wasn't yours to carry just to smooth things over. Times when you've given and given and given until you were running on fumes and still felt guilty for not giving more. Times when you've smiled through moments that deserved a firm no, that's not okay. And maybe, just maybe, times when your kindness wasn't about love at all, but about fear. Fear of losing someone's approval. Fear of being seen as difficult. Fear of being alone. But let me tell you something. Respect doesn't live in fear. Respect lives in truth. And truth says this: you cannot be respected if you teach people that your time, your energy, your dignity are free for the taking. You cannot be respected if you make your own needs invisible. You cannot be respected if you hand away your voice every time it could make someone uncomfortable. Kindness is only powerful when it's backed by self-respect. It's only meaningful when it comes from choice, not obligation. And choice requires boundaries. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about deciding who gets to be close. They're about showing the world that your compassion is a treasure, not a tap that anyone can turn on. You have to let people feel the weight of your yes. You have to let them know that when you give, it's because you want to, not because you're too afraid to refuse. You have to let them see that your kindness is deliberate, that it has a cost, and that cost deserves to be respected. Because here's the truth. People will treat you exactly how you train them to treat you. If you teach them that you're always available, they'll stop considering your time valuable. If you teach them that you'll take responsibility for things you didn't do, they'll let you carry burdens that were never yours. If you teach them that you'll give endlessly without expecting anything back, they'll build their lives on the assumption that you'll never run out. And if you teach them that you'll avoid conflict no matter what, they'll cross lines without hesitation. But when you start showing them something different, when you start saying no without guilt, when you start protecting your boundaries without apology, when you start giving from strength instead of fear, everything changes. You won't just feel different inside, you'll see the difference in how they respond to you. People respect what they can't take for granted. They respect what they can't control. They respect someone who has the courage to stand firm in their truth, even when it's inconvenient for others. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, because it will mean letting go of your need to be liked by everyone. It will mean losing a few people who only valued you when you were an endless yes. It will mean sitting in the discomfort of other people's disappointment. But here's the thing. Their disappointment will pass. Your self-respect will stay. And that's the trade you have to be willing to make. Temporary discomfort for permanent dignity. That's the exchange that turns kindness into power. Because when your kindness is rooted in self-worth, it can't be manipulated. It can't be twisted. It can't be taken without permission. And that's when it truly changes lives, starting with your own. I'm telling you today, you have nothing to prove by overextending yourself. You don't need to apologize for having needs. You don't have to bend so far you break to be worthy of love, respect, or belonging. You are already worthy. You are already enough. And the people who deserve you will see that, not because you gave them everything, but because you gave them the real you. The one who is kind, yes, but also strong, compassionate, yes, but also clear, giving, yes, but never at the cost of your own soul. So from this day forward, let your kindness have edges. Let it have a spine. Let it be something you can stand behind, not hide behind. Let it be your choice, not your chain. Because when you do, you won't just keep your kindness, you'll finally keep your respect too. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring enough to hear the hard truth. And above all, thank you for having the courage to protect your own heart while still keeping it open to the world. God bless you. And may you walk from this day forward with kindness in your hands, strength in your spine, and respect in every step you take.